Okay. Pretty powerful, huh, Marla?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say. You notice she didn't use my name ever.
All right, we're live. We're live, Chris. Hello, everybody,
Hi.
and welcome
Hi.
to Neighborhood Reads and our evening conversation with Marla Frazee and Alan Johnston. We're so excited that everybody's tuned in to hear Marla and Alan visit with us. And this is Chris Stuckenschneider, you know my friend
Hi.
Chris. And we are excited that Marla has come back virtually. She was here 18 years ago in Washington for our very first author event.
Amazing.
We called it the Family Literacy Day, and Kay Hazel was our sponsor that underwrote Marla's visit. And we just established this bond with Marla. We loved her then, we love her now. And just over the years, she has come back to Washington, I think 5 times. And we've been huge fans and continue to be huge fans. So Marla, we're really happy you're here. And I'm going to introduce Marla first. So Marla Frazee, as you know, is a children's book writer and illustrator. She has more than 35 books. Those books have garnered her 2 Caldecott honors and 1 Boston Globe Horn Book Award for picture books. And then she also received the Reuben Award from the National Cartoonist Society. So some of you may also be familiar. One visit Marla came for, she talked about Boss Baby, an adorable, fun book. And that was made into a motion picture. And we all enjoyed that. And then now this summer, Boss Baby 2 called Family Business.
Family Business.
Family
right?
Business is coming out. So you'll be able to, you could stream it, but why would you want to? You probably want to go to Cinema One Plus or another one of the local cinemas. Chris said she saw it on the marquee.
Yep.
So next week, we think that's coming right here to a big screen near you. So that's Marla, and she's going to talk to us about her newest books, the Farmer Trilogy. And so we'll get to that in a minute. And then we're going to introduce Alan Johnston. Alan is Marla's editor. She is the editor for Beach Lane Books, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster Publishing Company. And Alan has also come with Marla to Washington, Missouri, and done some presentations here. So Alan, we're happy to see you again and invite you back to Washmo soon.
For a little antiquing.
Yeah,
she can practice on putting my tablecloth on too.
Yeah, so now we're going to turn it over to Marla and Alan and let them share some things about the books and about picture books and things of that nature. And then at the end, we will have another visit. And if any of you have questions, you can type your questions in the chat and we will ask them at the end of our program. So Marla and Alan, take it away.
Super, thanks.
Well, thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Chris. It's really nice to see you both, especially together in the same box, Brady Bunch box. It's really great to be here. And again, with Alan, we're going to center this particular event on wordless books and kind of talk about what it was like to make them and maybe why they're wordless, and hopefully there will be some questions about wordless books and you know, as the event title said, how adults often don't really love them the same way that children do. And so we'll talk about all of that. But first,
because they don't love them because they're scared, because they don't have the scaffolding of the words to use when they're interacting with the children in their lives.
I mean, I think we all get used to reading. Once we know how to read, we rely on the words. And so to have them gone is a little bit of a free fall for us as adults, but it isn't for kids because that's their expert readers of pictures. And so we'll talk about all that. But first, I thought it would be a good idea to show the Farmer Trilogy to you. There are 3 books, and I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to, it looks like the host disabled screen sharing. So
Uh-oh.
we'll need Jake to,
We need Jake. Jake is our trustee expert, and he
Can you enable
is
screen
helping
sharing?
us
Thank you.
bring you a virtual program today.
Thanks,
So
Jake.
so there are 3 books in the Farmer book trilogy. The Farmer and the Clown, which came out in 2014, and then has been followed by The Farmer and the Monkey, which came out last fall. And then this spring, just a couple months ago, The Farmer and the Circus. And so those are the 3 books, the beginning, middle, and end of the Farmer Books trilogy. I'm really, really proud of them. And it's going to be fun to share them with you. So I am going to do that right now. Thank you. Thank you, Jake. Let's find it. Uh-oh. Okay. Here we go. Smooth start. We are going to start with a picture of Alan's studio, Beach Lane Books, which is in San Diego. And Alan, take that away.
Yeah, so this is where I am right now. It's a little studio in a community in La Jolla called Bird Rock, and it's about a block from the ocean. And I worked for 22 years at Harcourt Children's Books, and then they were taken over by Houghton Mifflin, and they closed that office, and S&S offered me this imprint. So I was able to stay in California and keep working not only on the books that I love, or in the field, but also with many of the authors I've worked with for many decades, including Marla. And so I even was lucky enough to have Marla design the logo for Beach Lane. So whenever you see that little child, and she and I have a debate between each other because I think it's a girl and she thinks it's a boy, but that little child walking on the beach with the bucket, that was Marla's logo design. So
it's in the sign on the left. I don't know if you can see it, but that is a very cool space Alan works out of. This is my studio. It's in Pasadena, California. And I was out there all day, but it's a total mess. So I brought this, my computer in the house just to kind of spare everybody. Alan and I have done a bunch of books, and here are a lot of them. I think all of them except for the one that's coming out next.
Yes, that's a big grouping.
It is a big grouping. And it goes back quite a ways. And in fact, they're not really in complete order here, but Roller Coaster, which is the third over on the top, was the first book I came to Washington, Missouri to talk about. And that was really fun. I can't believe it's been as long as it has been. But the books I want to show you today are The Farmer and the Clown, The Farmer and the Monkey, and The Farmer and the Circus. And they're all wordless, and so this is the first book. And on the title page, the farmer is waking up and going to start his very long day working in his farm. It's hot and it's tiring. And suddenly a circus train goes by and he turns around and kind of checks it out. Who wouldn't? Takes a break. And as it passes on by, something comes off the back and he doesn't know what that is. He's like, whoa. So he goes to check it out. And when he gets closer, he realizes a baby clown has fallen into his field. And the train is gone. And the clown points to where the train has just gone, demonstrates how he fell, how he's sad, and then comes and just hugs the farmer. And the farmer doesn't really know what to do. The train is gone. Trains can't turn around. So he takes him by the hand. And at this point, the sun's going down and he walks him back to his farmhouse where his farm animals are kind of like, whoa, who's this? And so they go inside. He's sort of, hello, he doesn't quite know what to do. And it's time for supper. So he makes something to eat, and the farmer's eating, but the clown isn't. And then when it's time, nighttime, the farmer washes his face. And when the clown washes his face, all that makeup comes off and the painted on smile comes off. And underneath that makeup is a very sad little lost clown. And the farmer is really worried about him. And so all through the night, he just sits and kind of worries about this little child. And in the morning, when the sun comes up, he wants to cheer him up a little bit. And he does his own clowning around. So he puts on his hat and he dances around, and he eventually gets a little smile, a real one this time, out of the clown. And they go off to start the day, because a farmer's day is always busy. So it's early in the morning. He makes some breakfast. This time the clown's eating. They go out to milk the cow. He shows the clown how to do that. The clown is, like, when he collects eggs, really good at juggling. Farmer, not so much. Then they go out in the field, and the clown is exhausted. He is not used to farm work. So the farmer does what he probably doesn't usually do, which is pack a picnic, and they take it up to the top of the hill. And while they're up there, what do we see in the distance? But the train is coming back. And so they just make a run for it. The clown is so excited. And the 3 words in the book are toot, toot, toot. And oh my God, the clown is so excited to see his clown family again. And there they are. And they are so happy to see him too. And they just kind of pouring off the train and give him the biggest hug. And then the clown runs back to the farmer to say goodbye. He gives him a hug. And then the farmer waves him off. Not before they trade hats. And they wave goodbye to each other. And then the farmer turns around and goes back to his farm all by himself. So that is the first book. And then 4 years later, the second book came out, The Farmer and the Monkey. I didn't know that this book was even going to happen. When I did the first book, I thought that was it. It was a singular book and the story was over, but turns out it really wasn't. So here's The Farmer and the Monkey, and it picks up really right after the first book stops. So here's the title page, and the train is going off. And the farmer is coming back up to the hill and gathering up the picnic basket and the blanket with the clown's hat. And he doesn't know that that monkey's behind him. And he takes the stuff back to his farmhouse, still not knowing that that monkey's there. And the farmer comes and just hangs out on the porch. I think he's feeling like, wow, that was something. And I think he misses the clown, and he goes inside and he sits where they first sat. I think he's just thinking about everything, feeling he misses him. And suddenly he sees the monkey. And so he goes to the door and opens it up, and the monkey says, "How do you do?" Something comes out of the monkey's hat. We don't know yet what it is. And while the door is open, in comes the monkey, and he just races all around and does all kinds of whatever he's doing, except when he picks up that clown hat and spins around on it and crushes it, not on purpose, but just because he's excited. The farmer is like, whoa, no, and sends him outside and closes the door and turns out the light and doesn't know that it was snowing all night. So in the morning when he wakes up, he's very surprised to see, like, the ground covered with snow and the monkey in the middle of the snowy field. So cold. The farmer feels really bad. He puts on his shoes, he puts on his cap, and he goes out to get the monkey. He even has a little tear coming on his cheek. He really didn't intend for that to happen. So he brings the monkey in and he puts him by the fire and gets him cozy. And then he gives him a bubble bath and plays him a song on his banjo. And then he makes the monkey a little drum. And then they sort of play a little bit of practice music together. And then he reads by the fire. The monkey falls asleep. And then he gets the basket and the blanket, and they go to bed. And he puts the monkey in the basket. That's the monkey's bed, and the farmer sleeps. And in the morning, the monkey's totally rejuvenated, ready to start the day and just full of energy. And so when they go out to do all their farm chores and the monkey has his drum, like, it's pretty crazy. Those animals are not used to having a drumming circus monkey on the farm. And the cow, the farmer dumps the milk by accident, all the eggs break. The farmer's calming down his animals, putting the chickens back in the coop, coming back inside. He's exhausted. And the monkey's looking out the window. And in the morning, he knows that circus train's back. And we see those 3 words again, toot, toot, toot. And he wants to go back to the circus. I think the farmer's like, yeah, okay, good idea. So he puts the monkey back in his circus clothes, and the monkey gives him something out of his hat, puts his hat on. The farmer packs up a little picnic and some snacks, shakes his hand, says bye-bye, and off they go. And off the monkey goes. And the cow is just, I think, so relieved. You can see his smile. And then the farmer picks up his banjo and just goes and has some quiet time with his farm animals when the monkey's now gone. So that's the second book. Okay, so now the third book, the finale book, is The Farmer and the Circus. And it opens on the title page with the little clown saying, I don't really want to wear that outfit anymore. And so the clown and his parent, they go through the costume chest, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to put on. And then he finds it. He's going to dress like the farmer from now on. So he's off in the field playing farmer when the monkey comes showing back up from the farmer's house. And when the little clown turns around, sees the monkey with his basket, and he knows that basket, and he recognizes the eggs, and he recognizes the picnic blanket. And oh my gosh, he's really excited to see that all again. And so the monkey and the little clown just sort of grab onto the basket, and then they just spend some time together, like playing farm after their experience, while the rest of the clowns are practicing for the upcoming circus. And so they do a lot of like playing in the field. They pretend to be farming in the field. They milk the elephant, and they have picnics like they did on the farm, and they juggle the eggs, and they do a lot of dancing and playing music together. And at night, the mom clown and the baby clown and the monkey all just sort of lie on that blanket and just think about stuff. And the rest of the clowns are doing their thing. But when it's time for the circus, it's time for the circus. So the next day, everybody's helping to get that tent up. And then here come the townspeople to the circus. And you can see the little clown is inviting them in, and the monkey is giving them tickets out of his hat, which is what he's been doing all along. He's had these tickets in there all the time. And when everybody goes in, the last person they see coming is the farmer in the distance. They're so happy. They're so happy to see him. They give him a big hug. And then they pull him and the clown mom behind the circus tent because they want to put on their own show for them. So they sit them down and they have their own show. And they juggle and they play music, and we hear toot, toot, toot again. And the farmer and the clown parent look at each other and they start dancing. All through the afternoon, all through during the rain, into the night, they dance. And then as time goes on, here comes the farmer for a different day. He has flowers and they all juggle the flowers, and then he comes with his banjo and they all make music together. And then he comes with an apple pie and they eat it. And the clown mom paints a clown smile on the farmer's face, and then he is just part of them. He comes, they all sleep under the stars. And the farmer learns how to juggle himself. So he's juggling all the hats. And then it looks like they're taken off. And everybody waves them goodbye, wishes them well. and our new little family comes back to the farm where the cow is not sure how he feels about that yet. And there they are, sitting under the tree together. So I wanted to show you kind of a little bit about how these books came to me. When I start thinking of an idea, I start with thumbnail sketches. And so this is like the beginning of trying to figure out not just a wordless book, any picture book for me, I start like this. But when I was in these sketches doing them, trying to figure out this book, I realized that this book would be wordless, like the first book. It was like the way I needed to tell this story, it seemed like it would be a stronger story if there weren't words telling us what was happening. I felt like the whole point of the books in the beginning was that we had one impression about the farmer. He looked kind of like a grouchy old farmer, solitary farmer. And one impression about the clown, who seemed like a very happy little clown. And both of those things turned out not to be true. The farmer was not really a grumpy, solitary farmer after all. He actually was a very nurturing and kind farmer. And the clown wasn't a happy little clown. He was actually lost and scared. And so those two things, I felt like that was a stronger, I would make the point with more strength if like the reader sort of, it dawned on them without being told, like in words, like they could see it with the pictures. So that's how come the books became wordless. And then,
Wait, Mark,
yeah.
let me just jump in here for a second. Can you go back to the previous one? For anyone who's listening, who's just thinking about just the possibility of making their own picture book, one of the things that I think is so important, even if you're not an artist, to think about the way Marla works here, is that look at this, even if you don't know, and there didn't turn out to be any words, but even if you didn't know what the story is, you can see that there's like this flow going on, and that she's paying attention to the pacing of how not just the page turns, which is another thing that people often don't pay attention to when they're trying to write and even illustrate picture books, but see how like some of the pages are big spreads and some of them are 4 vignettes and some of them are 6 vignettes and then one that's just the right side is a full piece. And there's just something so powerful when you are sitting there, from my perspective, looking at something even that makes basically no sense. At this point, I didn't know what she was doing, but I can just feel this emotional thing going on here. And that is something that's really powerful to me as an editor. So I just want to point that out.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think most of the time when I'm working on these thumbnails, I'm not really at this point even ready to show them to Ellen. So she probably, well, I'll show you at which point she saw the first version of the farmer and the clown. But this is when I was doing the second and third book. I had all of these thumbnails and many versions of all of them. Just trying to, like, what is the story and will it fit? And is it too long? Is it too short? And so no one could really look at these and know what it was that I was trying to do. But for me, it's like kind of mapping out the entire thing. And then this is the point where I did share the small sketch dummy with Alan. So the top one is the farmer and the clown, and then well, actually, I'm not even sure. But maybe these were all 3, the farmer and the clown, actually. But they're real small. They're only like 4 by 5 inches, maybe, and they're pretty rough. But you can see what's happening, essentially. And so I showed one of these small ones to Alan, and I said, "What do you think of this story? I mean, what do you think of it?" And she paged through it. And in my recollection, Alan, you said, "It's pretty weird. Let's do it." I don't know.
That's yeah. It's weird. Let's do it. I think that's what I said.
It was like, okay. And so getting the let's do it. I mean, then I started to do the sketches for real. So this was like the size the book will be. And then I go through and I pretty much nail down what's going to be in each page, you know, all the details. So after I did this, I started to do sort of color studies, like how am I going to paint it? Should I do it with ink? Should I do it with watercolor? And so what I ended up doing is a very laborious process where I would take a piece of paper and cover it with this pencil texture, which is sort of the base underneath the paintings. And it took forever, like a little area.
And I have to just jump in here because it looks like here, it looks like, yeah, you covered it with a pencil texture. Okay. But I finally made her describe it to me, and I was sitting on the phone with her and I took a little Post-it note and she's like, yeah, you know, you just take your pencil and you just like sort of sit there and you just like quietly circle in tiny circles. And so then I said like this, and I took a screenshot of, you know, and texted it. She was like, yep, that's right. And I said, well, I've just been doing that for 3 I've got this much. It's nothing. And she's like, that's right. That's what I'm doing. So she's just literally taking on this watercolor paper that has this texture. It's not like she's, you know, going back and forth really fast with the pencil. She's just like doing little kind of weird anal circles.
Exactly. Okay, so then here's the picture. This is a piece of paper that has a finished pencil drawing on it. And at this point, I take that piece of paper and I put it into the bathtub, which is also a very strange thing to do. I'm sure some people have stretched watercolor paper in order to paint on it, but a lot of people don't know about that. So anyway, I put it in the bathtub, and then when it's soaked, I put it on a piece of wood, and then I staple that wood to staple the paper to the wood and let it dry. And in many cases, the best place for it to dry is in my oven. So I don't turn it on, but there's a pilot light, so it's nice and cozy in there. And I just let it dry inside the oven. Sometimes my cat is very involved in this process. The paper is really very easy to tear when it's wet like that. So I have to be real careful while it's drying that nothing gets on it. The pencil's on the paper, and it becomes somewhat indelible when it gets wet and then dries. But when the paper's wet, the whole thing's sort of mushy and it could tear easily. It's kind of stressful. And then I paint it. And so the painting process takes a while, but kind of not as long usually as that pencil texture. And so here's a finished painting. That's the example, but you can see the pencil texture underneath the whole piece. And so then when the books were done, when the first book in particular was done, Alan just kept giving me gifts of clowns. So here are some of them to celebrate the book. But I had to tell her to kind of cut it with the clowns at one
Done with the clown gifts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then when she decided that she was willing to publish the 2 more books in the series and make it a trilogy. I mean, that was a big deal. And I was really excited. And when the box set of the Farmer books came out, she surprised me and had them on my porch with this bow and a card. And it was pretty fun.
What was fun about that is that that was in the middle of the pandemic. Like, we hadn't seen each other at all. And my family lives in LA, so I go up there often from San Diego. And I just like snuck up there in the middle of the night and dropped that thing off because I knew that, you know, we weren't supposed to have any contact with people. So that was a fun surprise. And so Dawn and yeah, Chris and Dawn, you guys want to take it away with questions?
Yes, we do. We do. So we have our own first. I don't know. I don't think our little chat thing is working, telling us where the questions are, but we'll figure that out. Meanwhile, we have plenty of our own. So Chris, you get started.
I will start. All right. You know, Marla, I've heard you speak a number of times and enjoyed it every time, but and I've seen your thumbnail sketches, but I've never seen the process of putting, and Alan, so interesting. I'm going to go home and practice this swirl stroke with the pencil. See how I do with that. But I was interested in the fact that you put the drawing into the bathtub and then into the oven. And I'm sitting there, I'm just imagining, first of all, not getting the cat hair on that if the cat's upright. But what is your favorite part? Do you have a favorite part of the process, of the physical process of creating a book? Can you tell me what your favorite part is?
Any one of these parts can also be really stressful depending on the book and how well I'm kind of solving the problems of whatever it is I'm trying to do. But typically what happens is I almost work on like ideas to finish sketches for half the time and then finishes for half the time. And it usually takes me a year. So let's say 6 months of sketching and getting ready to paint, and then about 6 months of painting. And that back and forth is really nice. Like after I've done all the paintings, I'm really happy to go back into a new project and just sort of do rough sketches and thumbnails and, you know, and then after all of that, I'm usually really happy to start painting, and then I go in order and I paint. So it's sort of that rhythm is something that has become a big part of my work life. I rely on kind of going back and forth between both of those things. With the second and third of the farmer books, though, it was really important to me that I figure out all the way to the end in sketches. And then all the way to do all the paintings at once of the second and third book. So those chunks, instead of being 6 months, each one lasted about a year. And so doing all those sketches was kind of like, this is getting, you know, but I sketched both books all the way finished. And then the painting of the two, it was like painting a 64 page, well, it was painting a 64 page full color. Sorry, that's my dog.
Not the cat.
Anyway, so that became, I was really happy when I finished the third book, and it was, you know, I was tired of painting at that point. But
I did have to have some moments where I did just that with Marla, where she was like, oh my God, I'm just never going to finish this. And I would just say, oh, look, it's just, we've got to think about it as a 64 page book. And you're just, so what's the math on how far you are in a 64 page book as opposed to the typical 32 page book? And so that was kind of how we broke it down. There's a story that's also kind of funny to share, which is that when she did have the idea to do the second and third book, to turn The Farmer and the Clown into a trilogy, she was so irritating because she left me this message and she said, this voice message, and she said, I got something I need to talk to you about. Can you give me a call? You know, that's kind of a bummer. That's like, it could be a million things. And it turned out that she was asking me if I was into the idea of doing a trilogy, because it had started here at Beach Lane. And I mean, you probably could have done it elsewhere, Marla, but it would have been a little weird to try to do 2 books to close out a trilogy at a different house. And so that's what she was anxious about, which is like, am I going to like this idea? And luckily, I was into it. And I didn't even know what they were about. Like, all I knew was she wanted to do it. And thank God she'd ended the first one with that great monkey background thing. So there was a place to go. You know, there was this like visual story that wasn't explained. And so you thought, wow, whoa, I wonder what's going to happen when that monkey gets to the farm. And so she set it up perfectly without knowing at all that that's what she was trying to do.
So I have a question, Alan, for you. Once Marla sends you those paintings, what's the process from there?
Well, okay, that's, do you mean the paintings? Because that part is kind of boring, because like at that point, she doesn't even send them to me anymore. So she makes scans, has scans made, and they go to our, production people, and because we don't want to like risk having the art lost anymore in the traveling world. So I guess maybe the backup question, or to just maybe more, is like when she sends me because Marla, not all artists work like Marla, where they don't deliver sketches that are as fully realized as she does. And so since she does, then there's something very specific for me to respond to. And so my job is to sit there really carefully and not just be like, yeah, it looks great, but to really look at every page and think about what the emotional moments are, whether there's something confusing, what the vibe is a character too large in a scene, just all kind. Now, again, it's so different in wordless books because, well, maybe it isn't. I don't know, Marla. Is it different? Maybe it's not.
No, I mean, that's something that is definitely something we should probably touch on, because we are talking about wordless books. But I think one of the things that it's not that different is because Alan we've worked together for, as you know, a really long time. And actually, just sidebar, we worked together before we had phones that could take pictures, and I could text Alan what I was working on when I'm working on it. So in the pre-phone days, I would put together a finished sketch dummy, and then I would either send it to Alan or we would meet somewhere, and then that would maybe be the first time that she's seeing sort of the whole thing together at that stage. Now it's kind of like, before you get the dummy in your hands, you've seen a lot of it. If I have a question, I can text it to her. So that's one thing that's super different. But another thing is that Alan has always edited the picture story, and not every editor does that. And so, a picture book has typically words and pictures, and an illustrator is sometimes treated almost as if the story is complete and then the pictures sort of decorate that story, which is not really how a picture book operates. And but I think sometimes that's just sort of, it's expedient, and sometimes that, in my opinion, is sometimes what seems to happen. I've been really lucky because when I started illustrating books, the editors I worked with before Alan also did that. And so, like, if I wasn't writing the story, my portion of the story, the visual portion, was still being edited just as if it was a word story. And so I mean, we talk about all kinds of things, like having to do with the actual story itself that's being told in the pictures. And so for a wordless book, for us to do that, it wasn't that different. I mean, it was sort of the same concerns, like, are you going off on a tangent here? Is this making sense? Is it necessary to, like, what you're trying to say? Or, all those questions, which I really appreciate having to be engaged that way as an illustrator. Because it's the way I think picture books should operate. I was thinking when we were just kind of leading into today, like, what are my favorite wordless books? And I was thinking of actual examples of books that have words, but they kind of sometimes kind of gallop alongside the words, as opposed to directly illustrate what the words are saying. It's almost like these two tracks of, here's the word story and here's the picture story, and they kind of like go along together. And there's just so many ways that words and pictures can operate together or kind of oppose each other. Sometimes they're completely different. Like when we did A Couple of Boys Have the Best Week Ever, the words were sort of like, as Alan would describe it, a straight man to the pictures, which then told the real story of what was happening. And, I just love that sort of space between the words and the pictures. So doing a wordless book it wasn't more difficult than doing a picture book in which you're kind of trying to keep up, dance with, pair with, gallop along the words, you know, whatever it might be. Like what you're trying to do as an illustrator is kind of interact with the words in an exciting way. And to do a wordless book, it's kind of like there aren't words, there's just this story. And then I think for me, like the idea of doing 2 more books in this trilogy was like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to make each book its own thing? And also build it as a larger arc. And also I didn't want to just sort of start adding things that weren't in the first book, like another character or another prop or another, you know, all of a sudden out of left field, there's something that like we didn't even know was there before. So it was kind of like I had the pieces of the first book to work with. And then it was like, am I going to be able to tell the whole story? And what is that whole story? And how, you know, I had sort of a vague idea of what it was, but how am I going to really do that? And so it was a big challenge. And I was really excited about, like when Alan said yes, I was like, yes, okay, this is going to be really, really challenging and really fun. And I loved it. I loved being able to do this whole larger story.
All right, Chris, it's your turn. You get to offer a question now.
All right. You know, as I was reading the 3 of the books again together, you know, I've read them separately, but to sit there this evening before we started and to read the 3 of them together, I'm consistently struck by the wonder that you pull from children's world, from a child's world. And for example, in The Farmer and the Circus, when they go behind, what is it, the monkey and the little clown go behind and they want to do the show for their sort of father figure and mother figure. And I thought, boy, kids do that. Kids love to put on shows. And I thought Marla can always hone in on the wonder of childhood. And I wonder how you draw inspiration for that, Marla.
That's a big compliment. Thank you for
You're welcome.
saying that. I really think I remember what it felt like to be that age, you know, pretty well. Like it's weird, but I do. And when I say that age, I kind of mean like, I don't know, preschool to kind of being a pre-reader. Those years, I remember the feelings of them, how I felt really well. And so I think I kind of go back into that. And, you know, I also, in the case of that moment that you just talked about, like them pulling the parental figures, I love how you said that, into like around the you know, the backside of the circus tent, like they have their own circus. And I feel like they play acted the farm. They play acted when they reunited this little clown and the monkey, they sort of play acted like the little clown became sort of farmer and then the monkey became kind of more like the little clown, you know, like they were always interchanging their roles and identities, and which I think kids do. And especially something so profoundly upsetting as being lost, you know, like it was kind of like, what? When I would think about that little clown coming back to his clown troupe after being with the farmer, like how had he changed? Like, of course he would change. Like what a thing to go through, you know? And then to recognize the monkey having the farmer's stuff, like be like, you know, just mind blowing. And then it was also like knowing that when that parent clown saw the farmer, like she already saw the farmer when he gave her back her child, and like the gratitude she must have had to the love that I can't even imagine the feelings that she must have had for that farmer. And so it made sense to me that when they saw each other again, that connection had already been made. And I kind of wanted to show in a children's book for children sort of what the process of falling in love would be like for grown-ups, because it happens in their worlds and changes their life a lot. Suddenly they have a parent who's fallen in love with them, then there's a new family or whatever it might be. How does that happen? And I kind of wanted to show, like, just the ways these kind of serendipitous connections could happen, outside of the child's world and affecting them as a going forward too. And so to me, it was like all these complex kind of wheels that I was sort of trying, or plates spinning or something, I don't know. And I it's a long-winded answer that really kind of went kind of far from your original question, but those are just.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in here too, though, as the editorial person, in terms of like what it's like to sort of be on this other side of, like, in the process of working with a person like Marla who looks at her work the way she does. What is so intense is in the form of the picture book, and like what a beautiful art form it is that I don't always think is as understood by people as it should be, even those who are making it, that it is that emotional center. Like you can do like some great language and you can do some beautiful pieces of art, but to kind of like really have the thing that you're making have this emotional center. Like, to me, that is one of Marla's great gifts as an author and author illustrator, and also just illustrator or whatever. Like, whenever Marla's taking on a picture book project, like, that she's not gonna do it unless she feels like she's gonna be motivated by true, like, human emotional drama, tension, whatever. And that makes it compelling for me to work on it. And then, of course, that's why I think it works for the world. That's why people keep coming back to the stuff that she makes.
Well, let's talk for a second. In kind of envisioning what we wanted the program tonight to be about, we talked about children being picture readers and how good children are at it, and the reluctance by parents to choose picture books wordless books to share with their children. So I have two questions. One, why do you think parents are so reluctant to share wordless books with their children? And B, as the creator of those books, what tips do you have for parents on how they might find more joy in sharing wordless books, especially your wordless books, with their children?
Marla, can I just interrupt and have you tell the story of the two great responses that you got from people when The Farmer and the Clown came out? Okay, those two people who wrote to you through your website about how their young children responded to that story. Because, like, they were 3-year-olds,
Right. I mean, at the moment I can think of one, but
that's okay. That's fine. Go for it.
But
one is good.
Yeah. There was an email I received from this grandmother who had been reading the book to her little 3-year-old granddaughter. And she said that she went and talked, a phone call came in the middle of them sharing this book. And when she came back, the little girl had already kind of paged through it. And she said, I finished the book, and like the clown said goodbye to the farmer, and the farmer has the clown's hat, and the clown has the farmer's hat, and they'll never forget each other. They'll always have something that the other one had. And so this grandmother wrote this email to me, and she said, this little girl has had a lot of loss already in her life. Like, and she was able to talk about how even when you're not with the person anymore. You're going to remember them if you have something from them, of them. And she was 3. I mean, it was such an incredible, and in a way, like, I think part of the reason she was able to take that in is because her grandmother went and answered the phone, and she was sort of there with, and then was able to talk about it. What's really, I was talking to somebody who's a very picture book literate person, who mentioned something to me about, and in the publishing business, it mentioned something to me about how she herself just gets stressed out when she's reading a wordless book to her kid. And I'm like, yeah, but your kid's not stressed out. I mean, usually it's the other way around. So why don't you let your child take over and you become more of like, take the back seat to the reading process, which is kind of how I would suggest parents kind of treat wordless books, because kids who maybe don't know how to read yet are really good at reading pictures. And so you could just almost open a book and ask them, what do you see? Tell me what's happening.
Right, so it's not your job as the adult.
Right.
It's the
Read me this story. And ask, like, I'm confused. I mean, reverse roles is what I would do, because kids will look at those pictures more carefully than you probably as an adult will. And I think that's what is inspiring to me about illustrating for kids of this age. They are the best at it. They're not going to probably be as good at reading pictures when they learn how to proficiently read words. It's almost like words just take over. They're strong. They're a big deal, Reading is powerful. It's a thing. And so once we know how to do it, it's just like, it's big, and the pictures sort of take a back seat to it. In our world, as especially adult readers, or even older kids, sometimes it's a rare adult that still like sinks into the picture story and sees all the stuff that a child would see. Like, I know when I'm working, like sometimes, like even when Alan and I are talking and she'll say, like, yeah, but is anybody going to see that? And I'm like, well, a child will see that. Definitely a child will see that. I don't know if an adult would ever see that. But I know a child will. So I think that's kind of how I would look at it. It's sort of role reversal. It's sort of nice. It's almost like if you could do that, you drive your kids around in the car and you're going to like carpool and drop them off here. I mean, if there was like a situation where it was safe to say, you know what, I just want to be a passenger while you drive. I mean, obviously we can't do that, but in this case, you can do that. And you could just sort of let them read to you, and then maybe you as an adult will see stuff in the pictures that you wouldn't see because you're so trying to like steer that story, and maybe not in the way your child would steer it if they had the wheel.
All right, so we get to ask one more question. So Chris gets the last question.
Aren't I privileged? So I was thinking while you were talking about that, do you see hope then? Do the two of you see hope in graphic novels? How do you feel about those?
I'm reading one right now.
Yeah, an adult or a YA or a...
It's an adult.
An adult graphic novel.
Yeah. The superhuman,
What is it?
Hang on.
She's getting it.
Oh. It's very good.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay.
We have that on the shelf here at
Do
Neighborhood.
you?
Events.
Yes, I love it.
Perfect.
I love it.
How do you both feel about that? There's such a emphasis and such a growing focus on graphic novels. And I have a reluctant reader in our family, a little going to be 7th grade girl, and it's what she gravitates toward. when other books feel so overwhelming to her at this point. So how do you two feel about them?
I love them. I feel like I'm seeing a film. It's almost like it feels more like going to the movies to me than reading in some ways. Like once I get into it, it's just like I really do love them. I have a very strong opinion though about graphic novel picture books because I think of the picture book as being a short form, and a graphic novel can be as long as it needs to be. So like I feel like there can be a kind of cartooned or graphic novel-esque picture book, but if it gets too long, to me it's not a picture book anymore. I guess that's a personal opinion, and I'm sure there are people that would totally disagree with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you. It's been
Thanks.
amazing. Second of all,
Always.
you've graciously offered to send signed book plates. If anybody wants to buy from Neighborhood Reads the Farmer and the Clown trilogy, any book or all of them, which after our last visit, we did have someone order the whole set, then I will request to you to get some signed book plates and we'll put them in the books for people. So that's super exciting. If you can't be here in person to autograph those books, we'll make sure that we get autographs in them. The second thing I wanted to say is, for those of you that don't know, Marla drew Clover.
She's not showing.
I don't know. Can you see Clover there? It's kind of hard here on. There we go.
There you go.
So this is Clover. This is our reader bee for the Community Literacy Foundation. A year ago in July, the Community Literacy Foundation took Clover live. And this is pretty exciting. When Marla sent us Clover, she gave us a little gift and she drew us a little cartoon that was very sweet and very touching. So if you ever come in the bookstore, we have Clover on the wall, but hidden in the back secret compartment, it says, "Let's grow. You too can do anything. I'm excited for this new chapter. So happy to contribute. Love you both, Marla." We love you too, Marla. Thank you so much for this little gift. And for Clover, we're so excited. She's almost a year now sharing a love of reading with children all over our community. And we've been so fortunate to have so many supporters buy those books and put those books in schools and just continue the message of encouraging people to read. So thanks for being a part of that. It's
Tremendous gift.
I can't
Tremendous
believe
gift.
it's already a year. That's amazing.
July.
Yes.
Yeah, July. It'll be a year. since
Congratulations.
Clover was born, I think.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that special gift. And
Oh.
Alan, so great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks so much for including.
Yeah, we're
Next
so
time
happy.
in person.
Next time you're going to be here in person, but we're so happy that you are with us from California, different parts of California. We got to be right here together. So that was fun for
Yeah.
us. And then we will just pause this conversation and we'll start it again next June. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you
Great
all
to see
so
you both.
much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.